Thanks everyone for tuning in to another video on high ankle sprains. This time it's part of our Return to Sport series focusing on high ankle sprains and when you might be able to get back. Fortunately, there's been some excellent research in this topic over the last 12 to 18 months, so we're going to go through that today and hopefully give you an idea when you might get back on the training paddock. So this is all related to this paper written by this group of researchers, which has been excellent in terms of guiding us when people might return to specific parts of training in football. So it's focusing on soccer players, particularly 110 professional soccer players that are registered with the Qatar Football Association. And they all had unstable injuries, so grade 2 or grade 3 syndesmosis injuries. You can go through one of our other videos to learn about the grades, but essentially a grade 2 means you bust through the front ligament plus the middle ligament, and then a grade 3 injury means you bust through all three ligaments of the syndesmosis. And we'll go through later in the video how they determined whether the injury was unstable or not, but essentially most of the grade 3s will be, and a lot of the grade 2s will be as well. And this is an ankle joint drawn from the front. Ligaments in red there are the syndesmosis, and if we actually cut your ankle at the level of the syndesmosis and then looked at it from below where those eyes are, what it actually looks like is a big circle next to a little circle, and the syndesmosis has got three ligaments. So it's got a ligament called the AITFL at the front, a ligament at the back called the PITFL, and a ligament in the middle called the IOL. And the number of those ligaments that you bust through essentially determines the grade and has an impact on stability. So this study included grade 2 injuries, as I mentioned before, so the AITFL was injured, as was the IOL, so the ligament in the middle, but the PITFL was intact. It also included grade 3 injuries, which meant that the AITFL at the front, the IOL in the middle, and the PITFL at the back were all injured. And they went on to test them looking at stability under what's called an ankle arthroscopy or under a keyhole surgery with a camera. So what they did here is instead of that probe, that metal thing between the F and the T, so the fibula and the tibia, as you see in the diagram there, and if you got that thing in there and the fibula moved out of the way, that would be an unstable injury using a 5mm probe. So and then what these patients got was something called a tightrope. So they often got one tightrope. In a small number of cases they got two, which is a strong stitch across the ankle. And basically what they looked at then was when people got back to certain periods of return to sport. So in terms of sport-specific rehab, it was about 37 days. When they got back to team training, it was about 72 days, so almost 10 weeks on average. And the first official match on average is about 103 days. Although there's a range there, that's the reason for the plus or minuses. So that gives you an idea of, it takes a fair bit of time to get back. Now, in terms of a 1 month and 2 month post-op, in terms of looking at variables, in terms of return to sport-specific rehab, 55% got back at 1 month versus 97% at 2 months. In terms of getting back to team training, the players, only 4% got back in a month. But at 2 months, 47% of them had gotten back, which is pretty good. And then in terms of playing the first official professional match, none of them got back in a month, which is which makes sense. And only 4% made it back at 2 months post-op. So when these figures then looked at around about the 5 month mark, that team training return got up to about 95%. And the 95 in terms of first official match, about 76%, so about 3/4 of them got back at the 5 month mark after suffering a syndesmosis injury. Now the severity made a difference. So if you had that grade 2 injury where you went through the front and the middle, obviously that's not as bad an injury as going through the front, middle and back like a grade 3 injury to the syndesmosis. And what that meant is all had returned to team training at about the 3 month mark in grade 2, whereas only 14% had returned at that point with the grade 3. All had played an official match by 4 months in the grade 2 group, whereas only about a quarter had played an official match in the grade 3 group. So that makes a big difference depending on the severity of injury you've got. Now the grade of injury, age, and whether you had a cartilage injury or not with your syndesmosis, you made a big difference in terms of predicting when you get back to that sport-specific rehab with your physio, when you return to team training, and when you played your first official match. So what I mean by that is, if you took a 25-year-old player in this study who had a grade 2 injury only, so the less severe injury, and didn't have a cartilage injury, then the average return to sport-specific rehab for them was about 31 days, which is a bit over 4 weeks, right? But if you had a grade 3 injury, then you need to add 16 days to that, so almost an extra 2 weeks to get back to sport-specific rehab. If you had a cartilage injury, you need to add another 4 days, and a cartilage injury is more likely than a grade 3 injury. And then every year under the age of 25 they needed to add another 0.4 days, so the younger patients did worse. So you just need to be mindful of that. Now when I'm talking about cartilage injury, I'm talking about a little lining of the joint injury there, which is on the x-ray there, which can occur more likely with a grade 3 injury. But look, tune into www.hunterfootandankle.com.au. I hope that made, I think it's pretty interesting. Gives you a bit of a look at when you might be able to return to sport yourself, although they are professional players, you're going to add some time, and certainly other sports will have a different take on that in terms of when getting back, but we obviously more data. This is actually the best study that's been produced on return to sport in syndesmosis injury so far. Thanks. And don't forget to subscribe to our videos and certainly like if you found the topic interesting.